The scene opens with US Secretary of State Marco Rubio standing before reporters in Israel. His posture is measured, his tone steady. This is a visit designed to signal intent, not only on the immediate ceasefire in Gaza, but on the broader diplomatic architecture being reshaped in the Middle East. Rubio is speaking directly about normalization, about the future of the Abraham Accords, and about the potential expansion of the map of regional alliances. He says, I do think the Abraham Accords can grow. I think there are some countries you could probably add right now if we wanted to, but we want to do a big thing about it, and so we're working on it. But believe me, we have a whole unit at the State Department that works on that. The message is clear. The United States is not merely maintaining previous agreements, it is actively pushing to expand them. The Abraham Accords, signed in 2020, marked a major shift in diplomatic relations between Israel and several Arab nations. The United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco and Sudan moved from decades of strategic distance to formal recognition and cooperation. At the time, the agreements were presented as historic, a pathway to incremental peace through development, investment and normalized ties. But now the landscape is different. The region is emerging from months of conflict in Gaza. Talks of ceasefire, hostage exchanges, reconstruction commitments, and humanitarian access form the backdrop of every diplomatic conversation. In this setting, the words normalization and regional stabilization mean far more than they did 4 years ago. Rubio's visit is not only diplomatic, it is symbolic. He stands beside Israel during a period of intense global scrutiny, and yet he is also acknowledging the complexity of the moment, specifically the debate inside Israel over West Bank annexation proposals. He addresses this directly, saying this was a vote that they took in the Knesset. From what it was explained to me, it was elements that tried to use it to embarrass Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu while the Vice President was here. Suffice it to say, we don't think it's going to happen, and more importantly, it is not, from a legislator's standpoint, structured in a way that could happen. This is a significant statement. In recent days, members of the Israeli parliament advanced preliminary measures tied to the possible extension of Israeli sovereignty in parts of the West Bank. These proposals reignited long-standing international concerns, including from Washington, regarding the viability of a two-state solution and the future of Palestinian statehood. Rubio's comments are designed to ease tensions. The United States is signaling that it does not expect annexation to move forward. The implication is also strategic. Annexation would complicate any attempt to widen the Abraham Accords. Countries considering normalization would face intense internal pressure not to proceed if settlement expansion appears officially endorsed. And this matters because Rubio emphasizes that interest in normalization is real. He notes, obviously, as you put together this force, it would have to be people that Israel is comfortable with as well. Let me just say that there are a lot of countries expressing interest right now. I am not going to get into a list of who they are. The phrasing is intentional. He does not confirm the names. He leaves space. But the message is unmistakable. Discussions are underway. As he speaks, images of parliamentary debate in Jerusalem appear. The vote, the speeches, the strategy, all of it is part of the broader political reality on the ground. Israel is balancing its domestic coalition politics with its diplomatic objectives. Political pressure from right-wing blocs is real. Coalition stability remains an ongoing challenge. And yet the leadership understands that international legitimacy and regional economic partnerships are strategic necessities. This balance is also reflected in the rhetoric of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. In a statement recorded earlier during the signing period of the original normalization agreements, Netanyahu said, "And the blessings of the peace we make today will be enormous. First, because this peace will eventually expand to include other Arab states, and ultimately it can end the Arab-Israeli conflict once and for all." That message, peace through expansion rather than through bilateral settlement, remains a core part of Israeli diplomatic strategy today. Israel sees normalization not only as a foreign policy achievement, but as a regional security anchor. Rubio reinforces that perspective. He repeats his earlier message again, underscoring the consistency of US policy. I do think the Abraham Accords can grow. I think there are some countries you could probably add right now if we wanted to, but we want to do a big thing about it, and so we're working on it. But he also draws a firm line regarding Gaza. The United States position, he says, is unchanged. The people of Gaza deserve a better future, but that better future cannot begin until Hamas is eliminated. That better future and that kind of peace is not even possible until the hostages are released, all of them, every single one. And so that's what we continue to be focused on. This statement reflects a core US framing of the conflict. Humanitarian aid must expand, civilian suffering must end, reconstruction planning must begin. But all of these are conditioned on demilitarization and the end of hostilities. The release of hostages remains the central demand. Across the region, this message resonates differently depending on the audience. For Israel, it reaffirms security priorities. For neighboring Arab states, it highlights the political sensitivities surrounding normalization, while the Gaza crisis remains unresolved. For Palestinians, it raises urgent questions about representation, governance, and sovereignty. The footage shifts to scenes inside the Knesset, lawmakers seated, hands raised in procedural votes. These images illustrate the tension between diplomacy and domestic politics. Every gesture in Parliament echoes far beyond its walls. Decisions made here influence negotiations abroad, condition public debate, and shape the possibilities of the ceasefire being discussed. Rubio's remarks are also aimed at international observers, particularly those evaluating US policy continuity. The administration he represents continues to promote regional agreements as a pathway to stability. The diplomatic logic is straightforward. Normalization reduces isolation, increases interdependence, and makes large-scale conflict less likely. But normalization is not only geopolitical, it is also economic. The Abraham Accords open channels for investment, tourism, technology exchanges, energy infrastructure coordination, and aviation agreements. Expanding these frameworks could deepen interconnected supply chains from the Gulf to the Mediterranean. That kind of economic integration is a powerful stabilizing tool, one that reshapes incentives for cooperation across the region. The conversation surrounding annexation threatens that trajectory. Rubio addresses that directly because ignoring it would undermine credibility. By framing the Knesset vote as a political maneuver rather than a policy shift, he is effectively reassuring normalization candidates that the framework is still viable. The speech transitions again to broader reflections on the ceasefire. While the ceasefire discussions remain ongoing, the diplomatic signaling woven through this visit makes clear that US strategy is regional, not merely bilateral. Washington is positioning itself as the broker of a post-war security architecture, one that includes Israel and Arab partners aligned by shared strategic interests. Where this goes next will depend on what unfolds on the ground. Hostage negotiations, humanitarian access corridors, border arrangements, Palestinian governance structures, reconstruction financing instruments, and security guarantees are all interconnected. Any movement toward normalization will require progress on these fronts. Without it, the political environment in Arab capitals will not support expanding formal ties. But Rubio's tone suggests cautious optimism. He is speaking not only to the present crisis, but also to the strategic horizon, a region where normalization is a tool to shape the peace that follows war, not merely to document agreements in the aftermath of conflict. The camera returns to him as he finishes his remarks, firm, controlled, intentional. He has delivered the signal he came to deliver. The door to normalization is open wider than ever, but what lies beyond it depends on what happens next in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Jerusalem, and in the negotiating rooms still to come. The script pauses on the broader implication. This moment is not just about diplomatic statements. It is about long-term regional recalibration. Decisions made now will influence the balance of sovereignty, security, and identity in the Middle East for decades. The expansion of the Abraham Accords is not just an agreement. It is a vision of a different regional order,